The first sign of trouble came from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Alpha Centauri. Commander Torres was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm systems started screaming. Red lights flashed across every screen in the command center. "What's happening?" Torres asked, rushing to the main display. Lieutenant Kim looked up from her console, her face pale. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures. Something big is coming through hyperspace." Torres felt his stomach drop. The humans had been expanding across the galaxy for 200 years. They had colonies on 17 different star systems now. Life was good. Trade was flowing. People were happy and safe. But they all knew this day might come. The day when they would meet something that didn't want them around. "How big are we talking about?" Torres asked. Kim's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Sir, I'm reading at least 300 ships. Each one is the size of a small moon." The coffee cup slipped from Torres' hand and shattered on the floor. 300 ships. The entire human fleet had maybe 50 combat vessels, and most of those were tiny compared to what was coming. "Send a message to Earth Command immediately," Torres ordered. "Priority Alpha emergency, and get me a visual on these ships." The main screen flickered to life. What Torres saw made his blood freeze. The alien ships were like nothing humans had ever imagined. They were dark metal pyramids, each one easily 10 kilometers long. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces. Even through the cold vacuum of space, they looked evil. The lead ship was even bigger than the others. It was 15 kilometers of black metal and glowing energy. As Torres watched, symbols appeared on its hull. The translation computer worked for a few seconds, then displayed the message in simple English. "We are the Vorthak Hegemony. You will surrender your species for cleansing. Resistance is not possible." Torres stared at the words. Cleansing. They wanted to kill every human in the galaxy. "Sir," Kim said quietly, "they're moving toward the outer colonies." The next few hours were the worst in human history. The alien fleet, led by something called War Prime Zexthul, began their attack on the human colonies. They didn't negotiate. They didn't give warnings. They just started killing. New Shanghai Station was first. It was a beautiful space city where 2 million people lived and worked. The Vorthak ships surrounded it like wolves around prey. Then they fired. The energy beams that came from their weapons were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They didn't just destroy New Shanghai Station. They made it disappear. One moment, there was a thriving city floating in space. The next moment, there was nothing. Not even debris. Just empty space where millions of people had been living their lives. Captain Sarah Martinez was commanding the defense fleet at Kepler Station when the news reached her. She had 12 ships under her command, good ships with brave crews. But when she saw what had happened to New Shanghai, she knew they didn't stand a chance. "All ships, this is Martinez," she broadcast to her fleet. "We're going to make our stand here. We can't win, but we can slow them down. Every minute we buy gives Earth more time to prepare." Her ships formed a defensive line in front of Kepler Station. Behind them, evacuation ships were loading as many civilians as possible. Families were being torn apart as parents put their children on rescue ships while staying behind to help others. The Vorthak fleet arrived like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Their ships were so big they blocked the light from the system's sun. Captain Martinez had never felt so small in her life. "Open fire," she ordered. The human ships launched everything they had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy cannons blazed. For a few moments, it looked like they might actually hurt the alien ships. Then the Vorthak returned fire. The first energy beam hit Martinez's flagship and cut it in half like a hot knife through butter. She had just enough time to see her bridge, exploding around her before everything went white. The other human ships lasted less than 2 minutes. The Vorthak weapons were so powerful they could destroy a human battleship with a single shot, and they had hundreds of those weapons. With the defense fleet gone, The aliens turned their attention to Kepler Station itself. 3 million people lived there. Men, women, children, elderly grandparents, all of them human, all of them about to die. The station's shields held for maybe 30 seconds. Then the Vorthak beams punched through and began tearing the station, apart piece by piece. The evacuation ships tried to run, but the alien fleet surrounded them. None escaped. The pattern repeated across human space. Colony after colony fell to the Vorthak fleet. Titan Base, New Geneva, Paradise Valley. Each one home to millions of humans. Each one wiped out completely. The aliens were thorough. They didn't just attack the military bases and space stations. They hunted down every human ship they could find. Cargo vessels, passenger liners, even small family shuttles trying to escape. The Vorthak destroyed them all. On Earth, Admiral Chen watched the reports come in. Each one was worse than the last. 17 million humans dead in the first day, and the alien fleet was still coming. How long until they reach Earth? She asked her staff. At their current speed, 6 days, came the reply. 6 days. The entire human race had 6 days left to live. Chen walked to the window of her office and looked out at the Earth below. It was a beautiful blue and green planet. 3 billion people called it home. Children played in parks, couples fell in love, artists created beautiful things. Scientists made discoveries that could benefit everyone. All of that would be gone in 6 days. The Vorthak had made their intentions clear. They saw humans as a disease that needed to be cured. They called humanity a carbon plague that threatened the order of the galaxy. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of anything humans had built. Their ships could withstand the heat of a star. Their weapons could crack planets in half. But Admiral Chen had a secret. Something that even most of Earth's leaders didn't know about. Something that had been hidden in the asteroid belt for 20 years, waiting for a day like this. She picked up a secure communication device and entered a code that only 5 people in the entire human government knew. "This is Admiral Chen," she said when the connection opened. "Authorization code Omega 77 Alpha. Prepare the retribution for immediate deployment." On the other end of the line, there was a long pause. "Admiral, are you sure? Once we use it, there's no going back." Chen looked out at Earth again. Somewhere down there, her granddaughter was probably playing with her friends, not knowing that. Alien monsters were coming to kill everyone she had ever loved. "I'm sure," Chen said. "Wake up Captain Webb. Tell him it's time." The Vorthak fleet continued its advance toward Earth. War Prime Zexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, satisfied with how the cleansing was progressing. The humans were weak. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were tiny and fragile. Soon, every trace of human contamination would be removed from the galaxy. The natural order would be restored. The Vorthak hegemony would continue to rule unopposed for another 1,000 years. War Prime Zexthul had no way of knowing that in a hidden base deep in the asteroid belt, something was stirring. Something that would change everything. The humans had one last card to play, and when they played it, the galaxy would never be the same again. Deep in the asteroid belt, Captain Marcus Webb opened his eyes for the first time in 3 years. The cryogenic pod hissed as it opened, and cold air rushed into his lungs. His body ached from the long sleep, but his mind was instantly alert. "Welcome back, Captain," said Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief medical officer of the secret facility. "I'm sorry we had to wake you like this." Webb sat up slowly, his muscles protesting after years of frozen sleep. "How bad is it?" 17 million. "Dead in the first wave. The alien fleet is 6 days from Earth." Webb nodded grimly. He had volunteered for this mission 3 years ago, knowing he might never wake up. But if he did wake up, it would mean humanity was in its darkest hour. "Show me the ship," he said. They walked through corridors carved from solid rock. The asteroid base had been built in complete secrecy over 20 years. Only a handful of people knew it existed. Even fewer knew what was hidden here. The massive hangar doors opened and Webb saw it for the first time. The UES Retribution. It didn't look like much, 400 meters long, sleek and dark. Compared to the massive alien ships destroying human colonies, it looked like a toy. But Webb knew better. He had studied every system, every weapon, every impossible piece of technology packed into that hull. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Dr. Kim nodded. 20 years of work. The best minds in human space contributed to her design. She's not just a ship, Captain. She's humanity's final answer to the question of survival. Webb walked around the ship, running his hand along the dark metal hull. It felt warm to the touch, even though the hangar was freezing. Strange symbols were etched into the metal, symbols that seemed to shift and move when he wasn't looking directly at them. "The quantum uncertainty drives are fully charged," Dr. Kim explained. "The dark matter reactors are stable. The reality field generators are online. All we need is a crew crazy enough to take her into battle." How many people? 200. That's all she needs. But Captain, you need to understand, this is a one-way trip. The technology we've packed into this ship, it's not meant for a safe return journey. Webb looked at her seriously. "Doctor, my entire species is about to be wiped out. Safe return journeys are not something I'm worried about right now." Within hours, the crew began arriving. They came from all over human space. Volunteers who had been secretly recruited years ago, scientists, engineers, weapons specialists, pilots. Each one had been told they might someday be called for a mission that would save humanity but cost their lives. Not. One of them hesitated when the call came. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Rodriguez was the first to report for duty. She had been a fighter pilot for 15 years, with more combat experience than anyone else in the human fleet. "Permission to come aboard, sir," she said to Webb. "Granted. How much do you know about what we're doing here?" Rodriguez smiled grimly. "I know we're about to fly into hell in a ship that shouldn't exist and try to save everyone we've ever loved. That's enough for me." Chief Engineer Pete Johnson arrived next. He was a big man with calloused hands and oil under his fingernails. He had spent the last 5 years studying alien technology recovered from a crashed scout ship. "Captain," he said, "I've been working on this beauty for half a decade. Every system, every component. She's ready to show these aliens what humans can do when we put our minds to it." One by one, the crew assembled. Each person knew they were signing up for a suicide mission. Each person volunteered anyway. Dr. Maria Santos was the quantum physicist who had designed the uncertainty drives. She was only 30 years old, but she understood space and time better than anyone alive. "The drives will let us exist in multiple probability states," she explained to the crew during their final briefing. "We'll be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Their weapons won't be able to target us because we won't technically exist in any single location." Commander James Park was the weapons officer. He had designed the quantum torpedoes that were loaded in the ship's weapons bays. "Our weapons don't just destroy targets," he said. "They erase them from reality, remove them from the timeline entirely. It's like they never existed at all." The crew worked through the night, making final preparations. They checked every system twice. They said goodbye to loved ones through encrypted video calls. They wrote letters that would never be sent. As dawn broke over Earth, Admiral Chen arrived. At the asteroid base, she wanted to see them off personally. "Captain Webb," she said, finding him on the bridge of the Retribution. "Are you ready?" Webb looked around at his crew. 200 brave souls who had volunteered to die for their species. They were checking instruments, running diagnostics, preparing for the impossible. "We're ready, Admiral." Chen handed him a sealed envelope. "These are your official orders, but I'll tell you now what's in them. Find the alien fleet. Destroy it completely. Show them that humanity will not go quietly into the night." Webb took the envelope and tucked it into his uniform pocket without opening it. "Understood, ma'am. Captain, I need you to know something. What you're about to do, it will change everything. The technology in this ship, the weapons you're carrying, They're beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. When you're done, assuming we survive as a species, we'll never be the same." Webb nodded. "Sometimes change is necessary, Admiral. Sometimes you have to become something different to survive." The Retribution's engines came online with a sound like reality itself groaning. The quantum drives created a field around the ship that made the air shimmer and bend. The crew could feel it in their bones, a vibration that went deeper than sound. "All stations report ready," Rodriguez called out from the pilot's seat. "Engineering is green across the board," Johnson reported. "Quantum systems are stable and charged," Dr. Santos added. Webb settled into the captain's chair and looked at the view screen showing the stars beyond the asteroid base. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was approaching Earth with the intention of murdering every human alive. "Helm, take us out," he ordered. The hangar doors opened, revealing the star-filled void of space. The Retribution moved forward slowly at first, then began to accelerate. As it cleared the asteroid field, the quantum drives engaged fully. The ship seemed to blur and shift, existing in multiple dimensions at once. To any observer, it would look like a ghost ship, there one moment and gone the next. "Setting course for the alien fleet," Rodriguez reported. "Estimated time to intercept, 4 hours." Webb leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. In 4 hours, they would either save humanity or die trying. There was no middle ground. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "In 4 hours, we're going to face an enemy that thinks humans are weak. They think we're nothing but a pest to be eliminated. They're about to learn how wrong they are." The crew cheered, and Webb felt a surge of pride. These people were the best humanity had to offer. Smart, brave, and completely dedicated to their mission. The Retribution raced through space toward its date with destiny. Behind it, Earth spun peacefully, unaware that its fate was about to be decided by 200 volunteers in an impossible ship. Ahead lay the most powerful fleet in galactic history, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Neither side knew that in just a few hours, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. War Prime Zex Thul stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see Earth growing larger as his fleet approached. The small blue planet looked so insignificant compared to the might of his 300 warships. "Status report," he commanded in the harsh, clicking language of the Vorthak. "All ships report ready for final cleansing protocol," replied his second-in-command. "The human homeworld will be sterilized within 6 standard time units." Zex Thul felt satisfied. The carbon-based plague had spread further than expected, but it would end here. The Vorthak had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They would rule for 10,000 more once this contamination was removed. His sensor officer suddenly looked up from his instruments. "War Prime, I'm detecting a small vessel approaching from the outer system. Show me." The main display flickered to show a tiny ship moving toward them at incredible speed. It was barely 400 meters long, nothing compared to the massive Vorthak dreadnoughts. "Analysis?" Zex Thul asked. "Single human vessel. Primitive construction. Minimal threat assessment. It appears to be moving at 98% of light speed." Zex Thul's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his species. "The humans send one small ship against our entire fleet? Their desperation is amusing." But something bothered him about the ship's speed. 98% of light speed was faster than anything in the Vorthak database. How could such a primitive species achieve such velocity? "War Prime," the sensor officer continued. "There's something strange about this vessel. Our targeting systems are having difficulty getting a lock." "Difficulty? Explain." "The ship appears to be shifting. Our computers show it in multiple locations simultaneously." Zex Thul's satisfaction began to fade. In 10,000 years of conquest, the Vorthak had never encountered technology they couldn't understand immediately. "Send the piercing shadow to intercept," he ordered. "One dreadnought should be sufficient to deal with this annoyance." Aboard the Retribution, Captain Webb watched the massive alien fleet grow larger on his view screen. 300 ships, each one a floating city of death and destruction. He had never seen anything so terrifying or so beautiful. "Captain," Dr. Santos called from her station, "the quantum uncertainty drives are performing perfectly. We're existing in 17 different probability states simultaneously. Their targeting systems are trying to lock onto us," added Commander Park from Weapons. "But they can't figure out which version of us is real." Webb smiled grimly. "That's because we're all real, and none of us are real. That's the beauty of quantum mechanics." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez looked up from her pilot controls. "Sir, one of their big ships is breaking off to intercept us." On the screen, they could see a Vorthak dreadnought turning toward them. It was 3 kilometers long and bristling, with weapons. Compared to the Retribution, it looked like a whale approaching a minnow. "Perfect," Webb said. "Let's show them what they're dealing with. Dr. Santos, initiate phase shift protocol." "Aye, sir. Initiating phase shift." The Retribution began to shimmer and fade. To the crew inside, everything looked normal, but to outside observers, the ship was becoming translucent, like a ghost. Aboard the piercing shadow, Captain Vexmore watched the human ship approach. His crew had fought in dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. They had destroyed entire civilizations. One small human vessel should be easy prey. "Target acquired," his weapons officer reported. "Firing main plasma batteries. The dreadnoughts' primary weapons unleashed streams of superheated plasma that could melt through planetary crust. The beams reached the location where the human ship should have been and passed right through it." "What happened?" Vexmore demanded. "Direct hit, sir. But the target is still there. Our sensors show the ship is undamaged." Vexmore stared at his displays. This was impossible. Nothing could survive a direct hit from Vorthak plasma cannons. Nothing. "Fire again. Full spread." Every weapon on the piercing shadow opened fire. Plasma beams, particle cannons, quantum disruptors, enough firepower to obliterate a small moon blazed toward the human ship. Again, the weapons passed harmlessly through. Their target. "Sir," the sensor officer said nervously, "the human vessel is... it's changing." On the tactical display, they could see the Retribution beginning to glow with a strange black light. The ship's hull was becoming darker, as if it was absorbing light itself. Aboard the Retribution, Webb felt the ship responding to the enemy attacks. Each missed shot was feeding energy into their quantum drives, making them stronger. "Chief Johnson," he called to engineering, "how are our power levels?" "Rising, sir. Every time they shoot at us, we get stronger. It's like their weapons are charging our batteries." Webb nodded. This was exactly what the designers had hoped for. The Retribution wasn't just immune to conventional weapons. It fed on them. "Commander Park, are we ready to return fire?" "Quantum torpedoes loaded and ready, sir. Target locked." Webb took a deep breath. For 20 years, humanity had worked toward this moment. All their hopes, all their dreams, all their anger at being threatened with extinction was packed into those torpedoes. Fire. The Retribution's weapon ports opened and released something that wasn't quite matter and wasn't quite energy. The quantum torpedoes moved through space like streaks of liquid darkness. They struck the piercing shadow amidships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality began to unravel around the impact points. The massive dreadnought started to fade, like an image being erased. "What's happening to us?" Captain Vexmore screamed as his bridge began to disappear around him. But there was no one left to answer. The quantum torpedoes didn't just destroy the ship, they removed it from existence entirely. The piercing shadow had never been built. Its crew had never been born. The atoms that formed its hull had never come together. 3 kilometers of Vorthak. War Machine simply ceased to be. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, War Prime Zexthul watched in horror as one of his most powerful ships vanished from all sensors. "Report!" he demanded. "The piercing shadow is gone, sir. Not destroyed. Gone. There's no debris, no energy signature. It's as if it never existed." Zexthul felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. In 10,000 years of galactic conquest, the Vorthak had never lost a ship in such a manner. All ships converge on the human vessel, maximum firepower. 299 dreadnoughts turned toward the small human ship. Their combined firepower could shatter planets. Surely nothing could survive what was coming. But as they watched, the retribution began to change again. The black radiance around its hull grew brighter. The ship itself seemed to be growing larger, though their sensors insisted it remained the same size. "War Prime," his science officer called out. "I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies around the human vessel. It's as if space-time itself is bending around it." Zexthul stared at the tactical display. The small human ship was surrounded by his entire fleet, yet somehow it didn't look outmatched anymore. It looked dangerous. For the first time in his long military career, War Prime Zexthul wondered if the Vorthak had made a terrible mistake. Aboard the Retribution, Captain Webb looked around at his crew. They were all at their stations, calm and professional, despite being surrounded by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. "All stations, prepare for full combat engagement," he announced. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who ever lived and every human who ever will live." Dr. Santos looked up from her console. "Captain, the quantum drives are at maximum output. We're ready to show them what humanity can do." Webb nodded and settled back in his captain's chair. Around them, space itself began to twist and warp as the Retribution prepared to unleash 20 years of human ingenuity, determination, and pure, stubborn refusal to go quietly into the night. The real battle was about to begin. The timer on the Retribution's bridge showed exactly 10 minutes until the quantum drives would reach critical overload. Captain Webb watched the seconds tick by as his ship faced down the most powerful fleet in galactic history. "All ships, open. Fire!" War Prime Zexthul commanded from his flagship. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 299 Vorthak dreadnoughts unleashed their full firepower at once. Streams of plasma bright as stars filled the void. Particle beams capable of cracking moons lanced through space. The concentrated firepower of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years focused on one small human ship. The weapons reached the Retribution and passed through it like light through a ghost. "Impossible," Zexthul whispered, watching the tactical display. Aboard the Retribution, Dr. Santos monitored the quantum uncertainty drives. "Captain, we're absorbing massive amounts of energy. The drives are using their attacks to fuel our weapon systems." Webb nodded. "Commander Park, let's return the favor. Fire quantum torpedoes full spread." The Retribution's weapon ports opened like the eyes of some ancient god. Darkness poured out, taking the shape of torpedoes that seemed to bend space around them. 12 quantum warheads streaked toward the Vorthak fleet. Each torpedo found its target. The first minute of battle saw 12 Vorthak dreadnoughts simply cease to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if they had never been built. "War Prime," the sensor officer on the Eternal Dominion called out in panic. "We've lost 12 ships. They're completely gone from all records." Zexthul felt his certainty cracking like ice in spring. "Continue firing, all ships, maximum power." The alien fleet poured more energy into their attack. Weapons that could boil oceans blazed toward the human ship. The Retribution absorbed it all, growing stronger with each passing second. By the second, minute, the human ship had begun to glow with an eerie black radiance that hurt to look at directly. Chief Engineer Johnson watched his power readings climb beyond anything the ship was designed to handle. "Captain," he called out, We're at 150% of maximum power. The ship is holding together, but I don't know for how long. How long do we need? Webb asked. 8 more minutes, sir. 8 more minutes, and we can end this. The third minute brought a new horror for the Vorthak fleet. The Retribution stopped simply absorbing their weapons. It began to turn their own energy back on them. Streams of twisted plasma, corrupted by passage through quantum fields, lashed out at the alien ships. When the corrupted energy struck Vorthak hulls, it didn't just cause damage, it caused the ships to age rapidly. Millennia passed in seconds. Hull plates that had been forged in the fires of ancient stars crumbled to dust. Crew members who had lived for centuries withered and died in moments. 15 more dreadnoughts fell to this temporal assault, their crews watching in horror as their own hands aged before their eyes. "What kind of weapon is this?" Zexthul demanded. But his science officers had no answers. Nothing in their vast databases contained any reference to technology like this. By the fourth minute, space itself was beginning to break down around the Retribution. The quantum uncertainty drives were pushing the fundamental forces of reality beyond their limits. Gravity waves rippled outward from the human ship, creating pockets where time moved backward and forward simultaneously. Several Vorthak ships found themselves caught in these temporal anomalies. They existed in multiple time streams at once, their hulls stretching across minutes and hours. Their crews experienced every moment of their lives simultaneously before their minds simply shut down from the impossibility of it all. Lieutenant. Commander Rodriguez fought to keep the Retribution stable as space-time twisted around them. "Captain, the gravitational fields are getting stronger. I'm reading massive distortions in the local area." "Can you hold us together?" Webb asked. "Yes, sir. But the enemy ships are having a harder time of it." She was right. The Vorthak dreadnoughts, massive and powerful as they were, had not been designed to operate in fractured space-time. Their navigation systems failed as they tried to plot courses through regions where the laws of physics changed from 1 meter to the next. By the 5th minute, panic was spreading through the alien fleet. Ship after ship reported catastrophic system failures as the reality distortions grew stronger. Some vessels found their own weapons firing backward through time, destroying themselves before they had been built. Others discovered their crews, aging in reverse, becoming younger and younger until they simply faded away. War Prime Zexthul watched his mighty fleet falling apart around him. Half his ships were gone, and the survivors were struggling just to remain intact in the chaos the human vessel had created. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," he commanded. But there was no safe distance. The quantum field surrounding. The Retribution was expanding, and anything caught within it was subject to the whims of broken physics. The 6th minute saw the birth of something new and terrible. The Retribution's dark matter reactors reached critical resonance with the quantum drives. The ship began generating gravitational waves so powerful they crushed nearby asteroids into diamond, then crushed the diamond into something that existed only in theoretical physics. These gravity waves reached the Vorthak fleet like invisible hammers. Ships that had withstood the fury of supernovas found their hulls compressed into impossibly dense spheres of matter. Entire crews were flattened into sheets of atoms before their nervous systems could register what was happening. 20 more dreadnoughts fell to this gravitational assault. Their death screams cut short as their communication systems were crushed, along with everything else. Dr. Santos watched her instruments with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Captain, we're rewriting the laws of physics in a sphere roughly 1 light-hour in diameter. Nothing that enters this region will be able to follow the normal rules of existence." "How long can we maintain this?" Webb asked. 4 more minutes, sir. Then we either shut down voluntarily or we take everyone with us," Webb finished. "Understood." The 7th minute brought desperation to the Vorthak fleet. War Prime Zexthul realized that retreat was impossible. The human ship had created a localized space-time bubble that nothing could escape. They were trapped with a vessel that seemed capable of rewriting reality at will. "All remaining ships, concentrate fire on a single point," he ordered. "If we can overload their defenses." But the Retribution had no defenses in any traditional sense. It didn't need shields when it could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It didn't need armor when enemy weapons only made it stronger. The concentrated firepower of the remaining Vorthak fleet struck the human ship like the fury of a dying star, and the Retribution drank it all in, growing brighter and more terrible with each passing second. By the 8th minute, the ship had become something beyond human understanding. It existed in all possible quantum states at once, a living paradox that violated every law of physics while simultaneously proving new ones. The crew could feel reality bending around them, but somehow they remained safe within their impossible vessel. Chief Johnson watched his power readings reach levels that should have been physically impossible. "Captain, we're at 300% of maximum power. The ship should have exploded long ago, but the quantum fields are keeping us stable." "How much more can we take?" Webb asked. "1 minute, sir. After that, we'll have enough energy to—" Johnson paused, awed by his own calculations. "Sir, we'll have enough energy to create a controlled Big Bang." The 9th minute saw the end of Vorthak resistance. The surviving ships had given up trying to fight and were simply struggling to exist in the twisted space around the Retribution. Some had their hulls turned inside out by dimensional inversions. Others found their crews scattered across multiple timelines, experiencing past and future simultaneously. War Prime Zexthul stood alone on his bridge, his officers either dead or driven mad by the impossible things they had witnessed. Through his view screen, he could see the human ship blazing like a dark star, beautiful and terrible beyond description. "What are you?" he whispered in his ancient language. As if in answer, the Retribution began its final transformation. The quantum drives, pushed beyond all limits, started to collapse into a singular point of infinite possibility. Captain Webb looked around at his crew one last time. These brave souls had volunteered to die for their species, and their sacrifice was about to save every human in the galaxy. "All hands," he announced over the ship's communication system. "It has been an honor serving with you. What we do in the next minute will echo through history. We are about to show the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly into the night." The timer reached 10 minutes, and Captain Webb pressed the final button. The Retribution became a new star, born from human will and impossible science. And in that brilliant moment of creation and destruction, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. The explosion was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. When Captain Webb triggered the final overload of the Retribution's quantum drives, reality itself screamed. For one impossible moment, a new star blazed where the human ship had been. But this was not a star of fusion and plasma. This was a star made of pure possibility, of quantum potential given form. It burned with the light of every timeline that had ever existed, every choice that had ever been made, every dream that had ever been dreamed. The remaining Vorthak ships didn't have time to scream. The wave of twisted space-time reached them at the speed of light, but it also reached them yesterday and tomorrow and in dimensions that had no names. One moment they existed. The next moment they had never existed. The moment after that, they existed again, but as something else entirely. War Prime Zexthul experienced his death in 17 different ways simultaneously. He felt his ship crushed by gravity. He watched it age to cosmic dust. He saw it torn apart by forces that rewrote the fundamental constants of physics. In one timeline, he lived to be 1,000 years old. In another, he died as a larva before, his first molting. In a third, he never existed at all. Then the wave passed, and there was only silence. The explosion sent ripples through subspace that raced across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species with advanced sensors felt it. Every civilization with quantum technology detected the impossible energy signature. On 1,000 worlds, scientists stared at their instruments in disbelief. On 1,000,000 ships, sensor operators called their commanders to report readings that couldn't be real. The explosion had been visible not just to the naked eye, but to every form of detection ever invented, and encoded in those gravitational waves, in the quantum fluctuations and dimensional resonances, was a message. Not words or symbols, but pure meaning transmitted directly into the consciousness of every intelligent being who witnessed it. Humanity endures. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the command center watching the displays. The alien fleet was gone, completely gone, as if it had never existed. Where 300 Vorthak dreadnoughts had been, there was only empty space and the fading radiation of the Retribution's final moment. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Dozens of species are asking what happened here." Chen took a deep breath. The secret was out now. Humanity had revealed capabilities that would change everything. "Send the same response to all of them," she ordered. "Tell them that humanity defended itself against an unprovoked attack. Tell them we want peace, but we're prepared for war." 3 days later, the first message arrived from the Vorthak hegemony. It was transmitted on every frequency, in every language, from every Vorthak world simultaneously. The species designated human is hereby classified as protected under the highest level of hegemony law. No military action will be taken against their territories. No hostile contact will be initiated. This decree is permanent and absolute. But that was just the beginning. Within a week, alien ships began arriving at the edge of human space. Not warships, but trade vessels and diplomatic couriers. Species that had never acknowledged humanity's existence were suddenly very interested in opening relations. The Crystalline Collective, beings of living mineral who had ignored human attempts at contact for 50 years, sent an ambassador with an offer of exclusive mining rights to rare element deposits. The Zephyrian Trade Federation, who had considered humans too primitive for commerce, arrived with cargo holds full of advanced technology they wanted to exchange for human art and music. Even the ancient ethereal ascendancy, beings of pure energy who barely acknowledged physical matter, sent a message expressing their curiosity about the carbon-based species that had achieved quantum mastery. Admiral Chen, now promoted to head the newly formed Human Defense Consortium, found herself meeting with more alien dignitaries in a month than humanity had encountered in 2 centuries. "They're all afraid," explained Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, the Consortium's chief xenopsychologist. The Retribution didn't just destroy the Vorthak fleet. It demonstrated capabilities that most species consider theoretically impossible. "They're treating us like a sleeping giant that might wake up angry." "Are they right to be afraid?" Chen asked. Dr. Morgan smiled grimly. "Admiral, we have 7 more ships like the Retribution hidden in various star systems. Each one is more advanced than the last. If humanity ever needs to defend itself again, we can make the entire galaxy remember why they should leave us alone." 6 months after the Battle of Earth, as historians were already calling it, Chen stood in her new office aboard New Geneva Station. Through the massive windows, she could see a sight that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. Alien. Ships lined up in orderly queues, waiting for permission to enter human space. Trade negotiations, diplomatic meetings, cultural exchanges. The species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive barbarians were now treating them as one of the major powers in the galaxy. "Admiral," her aide announced, "the Vorthak ambassador is here for his monthly report." Chen nodded. "Send him in." The creature that entered was vastly different from War Prime Zexthul. This Vorthak was smaller, with markings that indicated a diplomatic caste rather than military. He moved carefully, almost nervously. "Honored Admiral," the alien said in carefully practiced English, I bring greetings from the Hegemony Council and our monthly tribute of rare materials. Chen still found it hard to believe. The Vorthak Hegemony, rulers of the galaxy for 10,000 years, were paying tribute to humanity. Not because they had been conquered, but because they were terrified of what might happen if they didn't. Show proper respect. How are relations between our species progressing, Ambassador? Chen asked. Very well, Admiral. The Hegemony wishes to emphasize again that the attack on your species was unauthorized and does not represent our current position. We seek only peaceful coexistence. It was a lie, of course. The attack had been fully authorized by the highest levels of Vorthak government, but everyone involved was now officially dead, never born, or existing in a quantum state that made their past decisions irrelevant. I'm glad to hear that, Ambassador. Please convey to your leaders that humanity values peace above all else. After the alien left, Chen walked back to the window. In the distance, she could see construction crews working on the new defense platform stations. To most observers, they looked like normal space stations, but Chen knew they contained weapons technology derived from the Retribution's quantum systems. Admiral, her communications officer called out, we're receiving a priority message from the Andromeda Research Station. Chen frowned. Andromeda was humanity's most remote outpost, sent to establish a foothold in the neighboring galaxy. What could be so important that they would break communication silence? Put it through. The holographic display showed Captain Lisa Park, one of the heroes who had served aboard the Retribution sister ship during a classified mission. Admiral Chen, Park said, we've made contact with a species here in Andromeda. They call themselves the Devourers, and they're planning to invade our galaxy within the next 50 years. Their fleet is substantial. Chen felt her blood run cold. How substantial? 10,000 ships, Admiral, each one the size of a small moon. They've been conquering galaxy after galaxy for millions of years. Chen was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then she smiled. Captain Park, do they know about humanity yet? No, Admiral. We've maintained complete stealth. Good. Begin Phase 2 of the Prometheus project. It's time to build more ships like the Retribution. As the communication ended, Chen looked out at the alien vessels waiting peacefully in human space. They had learned to respect humanity after seeing what one impossible ship could do in 10 minutes. Soon, the Devourers would learn the same lesson. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but humanity had proven something important in that brief, terrible battle above Earth. They had shown that when pushed to the edge of extinction, humans didn't surrender. They didn't flee. They didn't beg for mercy. They built ships that could rewrite the laws of physics and used them to remind the universe why it was a very bad idea to threaten the human race. In the deep archives of New Geneva Station, classified reports told the full truth. The Retribution had been just the beginning. Humanity now possessed technology that could unmake stars, fold space-time like paper, and create new realities from quantum potential. The galaxy had tried to erase humanity from existence. Instead, humanity had erased the very concept of their own weakness, and across the stars, in the meeting halls of 1,000 species, the same message was whispered in 1,000 different languages. They tried to erase us. We erased them instead. Remember this and choose wisely. The age of human expansion was just beginning.